Welcome to the Mason Duchatschek Show. This episode is brought to you by Workforce Alchemy, helping leaders improve hiring, engagement, and retention while uncovering people-related profit leaks hidden in everyday operations. Today's guest is Dr. Liz DuBois Erskine, a PhD conflict analyst and executive coach who helps high performers break patterns of people-pleasing, burnout, and fear of judgment. With a background that includes roles at Disney and iHeartRadio, she brings a direct, no-nonsense approach to executive presence, navigating male-dominated environments, and redefining success beyond hustle culture. So happy to have you here. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So when you think about high-pressure leadership environments, what are the small behaviors that tend to separate people who are taken seriously from those who are not?
Ooh, for me, this always goes into like a really significant gender dichotomy because I see women do this much more so than men. And it's such an instant credibility sucker, which is apologizing. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, excuse me. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Where women are apologizing for not much, right? Like they fumble the check card as they're like getting their morning latte, or, let me just get by this person on the metro platform. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, versus like, excuse me. And this comes into play in every single setting in life. And of course, when it comes into a work-like setting and you're a leader, the consistent apologizing simply for existing versus saying, excuse me, or thank you for your patience, right? Instantly, oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, excuse me. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. This consistent apologizing really undermines the kind of the premise that you're allowed to be somewhere and you're allowed to take up space. Right. And so the big thing that I see happen in leadership roles where women do this is it undermines their credibility, and they're very concerned with being seen as approachable and collaborative. And this gets translated into, I want to make sure that nobody else thinks I'm above them or better than them, not above them in the sense of a hierarchy at work, but that I'm a better person, or that I think more highly of myself than I really should. And the apologizing plays a role in communicating that, where I just want to make sure that you don't think that I think too much of myself. I'm so sorry if this came across in a way that made you uncomfortable, whatever. That's a big one for me, is the I'm so sorries.
And that's something that could apply to men too. I mean, that's an easy win that you've just given anybody listening, is to handle things instead of just like you said, not apologizing, but just say, well, thank you, or I appreciate you waiting for me,
Yep.
versus, oh, I'm sorry that you had to wait. I love that. So
Yep.
in meetings where ideas are challenged or ignored, what have you seen people do in the moment that actually earns them respect versus losing the room?
I think taking accountability. I have a client who is just an absolute genius at this. He was in leadership in a first responder capacity for decades. He was well sought after, respected leader in a first responder capacity. Just as high, literally life or death, high pressure situations, actual life or death, high pressure situations. And his response to criticism, if he's done something wrong, is to instantly be like, I was wrong. I was wrong. And it takes the air out. It takes the fight out of people. They kind of almost don't know what to do with it. And because of this client, he doesn't know this. My household, my personal household, we've adopted this stance of, if you do something wrong, you just instantly say, I was wrong and you were right. And it was kind of started as a joke of like, you get to be like, I was right and you were wrong. And it's still a little bit tongue in cheek. But in my household and in my marriage, we have a culture of my bad, right? That was on me. And there's no defensiveness built into it. It's just, I did that and it's on my shoulders and I take accountability and responsibility for it. Let me know how to go from here in a way that like makes amends for that, or makes it possible for us to move forward. I think that brings huge credibility and respect to people because nobody's on the defense anymore.
So that's 2 questions and 2 easy wins. We're on a roll. So what are some of the most common ways that leaders unintentionally give up authority in conversations without realizing it?
I think trying to prove that you're smart undermines credibility and legitimacy. Really going into a conversation queued up to make sure that everybody knows you're the main character is a way that turns people off And I see this actually. I have a client who I'm helping her rewrite her contracts right now because they're not being received with, oh hell yeah, let's go move forward. So she'll get this verbal yes, and then she sends over the contract, and there's a lot of like confusion about this doesn't match what we said, even though if you really carefully read it, it 100% matches, but she's added all sorts of language to kind of couch the thing that is really going to happen financially because she wants to make sure everybody feels okay and comfortable, and so she's using all of this language to prove that there's value to her work and making herself seem so smart, and in the process it's making everyone confused. Well, wait a second. Straight up, like, what is it that you bring to the table here? And that happens in conversations all the time where people are very eager to have their value understood, and they're eager to be seen as experts, and they position themselves in a way that everybody's like, what is this person even talking about? Right? Like, I
Right.
don't understand. And they don't walk away with a clear, I call it the whiffum factor. What's in it for me? They don't walk away with a clear understanding of what's in it for them to work with this person or to collaborate with this person in some way. And so if you're walking in the door and you're worried about being proving yourself or being seen as intelligent versus giving a clear understanding to someone of why they should work with you or why they should go along with what your idea is or buy into your, vision of the future, whatever it is, if you don't give them a clear what's in it for me versus here's why I'm smart, you're not doing yourself any service.
And plus, if people are trying to impress you with the "here's why I'm smart," people don't wanna help them. I mean, at a
Right.
certain point in time, it's like, "Well, if you're so smart, what do you need me for?" And they'll just sit back and watch them flounder. So,
Mhm.
when someone is interrupted or talked over repeatedly, what response tends to escalate the situation and what response tends to reset it?
Ooh, this is such a hard one, right? I just think of the last presidential election, what are they called? The debates, right? Where Kamala Harris kept saying, I'm still talking, right? I'm not done talking here. That can be, I think, really abrasive. And in that situation, it was meant to be abrasive, right? Like she was doing that to highlight the fact that she was being talked over. I think that there's ways to call attention to the fact that you're not being able to get your voice heard without confronting someone and putting them on the defense, right? I think in all communication, the goal is to make sure that you're coming across in a way that somebody else doesn't feel like gotcha, or like put on the spot or called out. You want to make people feel called in, right? So an invitation versus an accusation. An accusation is you're talking over me. An invitation is I have something I'd really like to clarify. Can you hold off for just a second while I finish my thought? And I can have like a debate with anybody about should you really have to do that? And does that put women in a position of appeasing, broader power structures? And like, I think that there's reasons why women get talked over still that are very power laden that reinforce social structures without men intending to do so. But I don't think that there's a lot of value in playing like gotcha with people when you're being talked over.
So, what happens over time when someone avoids unnecessary conflict at the leadership level? What does that look like in real terms?
Generally, it looks like things fall apart. There's only so I think about it like a marriage, right? A relationship with your company is just the same as any other relationship, right? Like it's a relationship, a partnership that you're trying to make work and make a living from, right? For most people, right? They're not running a company because it's their passion and they don't do anything else for work, right? There's generally a profit motive involved, even if it's just let me pay for the groceries. I think when we sweep conflict under the rug, whether it's in marriage, whether it's in a company, whether it's in a relationship with your children, what ends up happening is people are keenly aware of the conflict and then become anxious about when it's all going to blow up. So instead of having the discomfort or the anxiety of addressing a conflict head on, you now have the discomfort of everyone's aware of the fact that something is very wrong and they're aware of the fact that it's unsustainable, and so you have two sources of kind of anxiety or discomfort. One is the actual conflict, and then two is the fact that people are tiptoeing around it and waiting for it to blow up. And so I think anytime you have an awareness of something that has the potential to cause a problem, you should address the problem. Being quiet about it is generally not the right answer. I had a conflict today. I have a potential client that wants to work with me. was made aware that they have an unsavory background. My husband encouraged me to do a deeper Google search than I had done. And this is probably not a person I want to work with. And I called my mentor and I said, what would you do with this information? I found this information. Do I bring it to the potential client's attention that this exists on the internet? And he said, no, you don't, right? Because I'm avoiding a conflict in some senses, right? But I'm avoiding working with someone who has the potential to be a real conflict. It's
Right.
the lack of awareness that bites people in the butt. And then it's the unwillingness to deal with an awareness of it, right? So there's this kind of twofold. There's the stuff you don't know that you don't know. And then when you know that the conflict exists, the stuff you know that you don't know, that's when you take it head on and you say, what's the best way for me to address this? Even if that looks like walking away, which is the conflict that I was dealing with this morning with my
In male dominated environments, what patterns have you observed around how ideas are received depending upon how they are delivered?
But give me some more context because that's a pretty broad question.
Well, I mean, it's because I've operated in both male and female, and or maybe you don't see a difference. Do you observe any differences in how ideas are received, whether someone's male or female?
I think it depends on the context, right? Like it's so industry specific. I think when you think about like banking and law firms, legal field writ large, you've got institutions that have been in place for hundreds of years that are governing how business is done. And so even when you have a market an industry become more saturated, like the legal industry being a really good example, more women than men are graduating from law school at this point. And yet we see in the upper echelons of legal practice, right, the most partners are still male if you're looking at more legacy firms. In those circumstances, I think you have to present your ideas in ways that are more devoid of emotion, that don't give as much personal background, that give people the bare facts and just the facts. And when you're communicating in spaces that, especially like the nonprofit space is ubiquitous for, is just like, I think of this as endemic in the nonprofit space where you just like add lots of personal detail and lots of feeling. And here's all the reasons why this idea is coming to mind and why we should do it. So I think it's really context specific.
You know what? I'll give you a little bit. I had an interview probably about a year ago with Dr. Don Barden, and he wrote a book called Here Come the Girls, and I was fascinated. And he talked about how women are taking over leadership and how they receive things differently. Where
Mhm.
if it's a male responsible, that when someone comes to him, typically he already says, "Well, then just go do this or just go do that." Well, in reality, the people he said a very high percentage. I can't quote the percentage, but it was very high percent of the time. People already know what to do. They don't need to be told what to do.
Exactly.
But females tend to be much more collaborative, and
Mhm.
instead of just saying, "Well, go do this," they are much more involving and collaborative and take advantage of the collective genius of the team around them, and the
Mhm.
team around them is typically more likely to contribute to that because of how it is received. And
Mhm.
I was just curious if you had a take on that, but I found his book fascinating, I found him fascinating, I learned a lot from him. So, when someone realizes that they've been consistently undervalued in the room, what's the most effective way to shift that perception without making a dramatic move? Or is a dramatic move necessary?
Well, it's like there's the room around you, the external, and then there's the temperature set within you, like the internal. What are the internal changes that you have to make? And then are there external changes that you have to make? Right. I'm thinking specifically, I have a client that was, she's in a male dominated field and she was at a firm where she had 200 cases and the industry standard was 50. And she would ask for support, ask for help, ask for, all sorts of different stuff saying like basically like, hey, gentlemen, this is ridiculous. Help me out here. What's going on? Like, let's get this addressed. And the feedback that kept coming her way was, you're doing a great job. Right. It was not actually anything that would help her, right? She was being undervalued in the sense that they weren't valuing her as a person, right? They were saying you're this little work cog and like go get it done. And if you can't get it done, that's because you suck, not because of the external environment, right? And so she
Right.
did the work of leveling up internally and saying, well, what is it about me that led me to be in a situation where I think that this is acceptable behavior and that I'm not walking away from this situation when it's been made clear to me that they're not going to change it, right? And so she changed her internal kind of temperature set point of this is what I'm willing to tolerate. This is what is acceptable in my eyes. And she then left that job and ended up with a firm that had the industry standard that was appropriate from a caseload standpoint, that she was being paid more, that she got a bump in title, all those sorts of good things. And that external change, right, leaving the firm and going somewhere else where she was valued, couldn't have happened without the internal change first, which is how is it that I'm in this situation? What is it about my psyche? What is it about my baggage that I'm bringing to the table that's led me to believe that this is the way that I'll allow people to treat me?
If there was just one piece of advice that you could give to anybody watching or listening today, what would be the most important piece of advice you could give and why?
Hire a coach. My life changed when I hired a coach. I was talking, the same client, we were reworking her contract this morning, said she was talking about the value of the product is $800 a month, but the price tag is 600. I was like, you don't know the freaking value of this product. You don't know if this is like the thing that takes their company to $1 million, right? My first coach, she was $10,000 for 1 month. I would spend that money over 100 times because at this point, the value of that has been infinite, right? I have a company 6.5 years later still because of her that's profitable, right? I have a paid off car, I have a paid off house. I got my husband using some of the she was like, make a Facebook group, get people in it. You'll find interesting people and then you'll network. And like, I met my husband in a Facebook group that I had created. Like you don't know the value of working with a coach until you work with someone who's phenomenally talented and all of a sudden your whole life changes. So I have a therapist, I have a business mentor, and those two people are invaluable to my company, to my personal life. But I also have a business coach and she's the one that really is the compass that helps me move forward in the right direction.
If people want to know more about you and the work you do, what are the best ways for them to connect?
Easiest way is through my website, which is just coachdrliz.com. So coach spelled like coach, DRLIZ.com. And you can shoot me an email just at drliz@drlizdubois.com. And I'm also on Facebook just as Biz Dr. Liz. If you're a lady or consider yourself such, I have a Facebook group called Ladies Who Lunch. It's a referral network just for women. We're starting the good old girls, smoke-filled back rooms, all that good stuff. So you can find us at Ladies Who Lunch, which is a Facebook group.
It's been a pleasure having you. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.